So, good afternoon and welcome. I'm Danuta Nitetsky, Dean of Libraries, and I want to thank you for joining us today for the first of three introductory webinars covering the basics of Altmetrics and the tools and data the Altmetric Explorer offers us. The Drexel Library has licensed access to the Altmetric Explorer tool for the next several months as part of our efforts to improve our systems that globally recognize Drexel research and researchers. We're encouraged to see so many of you here with us today. So gathering reliable data on the broader engagement and reach of our research can be challenging and time-consuming. Altmetrics Explorer is one of the tools we are examining and whether to more fully integrate it into the Drexel Research Portal we have created. We're excited to hear your reactions to the analytic tools and data that Altmetric offers. But before we get started, I want to run through a few housekeeping items. First, please stay muted during the sessions. We'll save time for questions and comments at the end. And second, we are recording the session, and you'll receive a link to the video later this week so you can revisit the webinar at your convenience. With that, let me turn the Zoom controls over to our guest presenter, Patty Smith, Products Specialist for Altmetric. Thanks again for joining us, Patty, and I turn it over to you.
Great, thank you so much. Let me just share my slides. Hi, everybody. My name is Patty Smith. So I'm a product specialist at Digital Science, of which Altmetric is a part of Digital Science. So I'm going to just give you a really quick intro to Altmetric today and Altmetric Explorer. But this is really just kind of a teaser, right? It's like about 20 minutes of content, leave plenty of time for questions. But if you want to learn more, do a one-on-one session with me or organize a larger, more formal training session to dive deeper, let me know. Please reach out. We're happy to keep talking about this. So first off, what are altmetrics? So altmetrics or alternative metrics capture how people are sharing and talking about research online. But when I'm talking about research, what am I talking about exactly, right? Especially with folks who work in communications and marketing. You use a lot of different tools like media monitoring tools to try and see how people are talking about Drexel research online. But when I'm talking about research in terms of Altmetric and the attention that Altmetric Explorer captures, I'm talking about very specific research publications. So let's talk about that a little bit before we dive in. So it's a little bit fuzzy, sorry about that. Not the most high quality screenshot, I suppose, but some differences between what media monitoring does and what Altmetric and Altmetric Explorer do. So media monitoring, which I'm sure you're all quite familiar with, is you can enter in keywords like Drexel University or maybe perhaps a topic or a specific researcher's name, and you can kind of plug that into the system and you can gather results from all those different sources that media monitoring scours. So media monitoring does a great job of scouring the internet for these different keywords. But Altmetric, it actually does not search based on keywords. So we're not just searching in general for Drexel University mentioned in Wikipedia or in tweets or on Facebook or in the news. It's searching for specific research outputs or publications like journal articles, books, and clinical trial records. And we do that based on all the metadata underlying those research publications like digital object identifiers or DOIs or ISBNs when they're tagged onto books. So we're using those unique identifiers to identify where research is being discussed more broadly. So just to give you an example of this. So I found this Washington Post news article, and it features a Drexel research study within the text of that article. However, within the text of this publication, or this news story, I should say, they don't actually mention Drexel University anywhere. They don't mention any researchers by name. They don't mention any other universities that were associated with this particular study. So all they do in the text of this Washington Post story is they link to this study published in the journal, yada, yada, yada. So that's the only reference that they have to the research. But what we do at Altmetric is we actually follow that link. So we follow that link to study, and that takes us to this particular journal article from the Journal of Academy and Nutrition and Dietetics, where one of your researchers is an author on this publication. And so we follow that. We then collect all of that information in one place. So then in Altmetric Explorer on the Altmetric details page, you're going to see that Washington Post article, that news story, displayed alongside all the other news stories that mention this particular research publication. And you can also explore the different tweets and Facebook posts, et cetera, that also mention this specific research output. So hopefully that makes sense in distinguishing media monitoring versus what we're looking for specifically at Altmetric. So again, going back to the definition, so we're capturing how people are sharing and talking about research online. But where are we searching for these mentions? So we do not track the entire internet. We're not looking everywhere on the internet for mentions of research. We do have a set of sources that we're tracking that fall into these kind of different categories or colorful buckets. And the colors are represented in our signature Altmetric donut badge that you see on the screen there. So these sources are where we look for mentions of research. So some are standalone and kind of self-explanatory, like X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, Wikipedia. Some of these are groups of sources like policy documents, news, and blogs. To kind of give you an idea of the volume of sources in each of these bigger categories, we're tracking about 500 policy sources. That includes things like the CDC, World Health Organization, National Bureau of Economic Research, and where they're mentioning Drexel research, over 8,000 news sources, over 10,000 blogs, about 300,000 Facebook pages, 34 different Wikipedia languages. The list kind of goes on. So we're not tracking everything, but we do track a pretty good chunk of where research is being talked about online. I did want to take a moment to discuss the Altmetric attention score, since it's, again, kind of one of our signature things that some people recognize when they're looking at Altmetric data. The score is really meant to be an indicator of the volume of attention that an output has received. So we're attempting to reflect the potential influence and dissemination of a research output or research publication. It is not a raw count of the total number of mentions. It is actually a weighted score. So, something mentioned in a news story is going to receive more weight towards the score than a mention on Facebook, for example. But I really like to emphasize kind of my main takeaway about the score is that it doesn't really matter what the score is when it comes to trying to ascertain potential research impact or tell a story. Instead, we really just need to look at, what are people saying? What are these outlets that are discussing research? And not really rely on the numbers to tell the story, because maybe that Washington Post example, let's say that was the only place it was ever mentioned online. That's still a really powerful story potentially to tell, even if it doesn't have thousands and thousands of tweets or Facebook posts or whatnot. So not relying on the score and instead seeing what people are saying and what those different outlets are and who's talking about that research. But now I'm going to hop into a live demo of Altmetric. All right, so when you log into Altmetric Explorer, this is what your standard homepage is going to look like. So your default is on this highlights tab, but you can see there's lots of other tabs of ways you can kind of slice and dice the search results that you're looking at. But one thing that's really great is that the library has curated Drexel University research, so you can actually look specifically through the lens of what your faculty, your researchers are creating. So I'm going to switch from looking at the full database of the entire universe to just looking specifically at Drexel University. So I'm going to click this edit search button at the top of the screen, and the default is the full database, but I'm going to switch this over to my institution only. And I believe the library updates this about every week, so it's quite timely updated data. So now I'm just looking at all research outputs that we know are associated with Drexel University. So there's close to 20,000 research outputs or research publications that have received attention that Altmetric has tracked, totaling over 311,000 total mentions across all these different sources that we're tracking. So just to give you kind of a preview of how that breaks down, some high-level summary numbers. So lots and lots of X posts. That tends to be, that's our largest data source that we track. So there tends to be a lot of action going on there. But if I hover over the red, I see about close to 33,000 news stories have mentioned Drexel research, 5,300 blogs, 17,000 patents, 5,000 policy documents. So there's probably, just looking at those numbers, there's going to be a lot of interesting stories that you could potentially tell related to where this research is being mentioned. So this is a big, long page here, but I tend to go directly to the other tabs to explore kind of what's going on, to get a lay of the land. So I'm going to hop on over to the research outputs tab. So how might you use this tab in your work and trying to see what's being mentioned maybe most recently? So the default sorting of this page is by the highest Altmetric attention score first, but I have lots and lots of ways that I can sort and kind of filter this, I can sort this list. So I could sort by newest publications. So in this case, we have stuff I think probably going into 2024. Yeah. So we have lots of stuff that is not even actually published yet, so it doesn't have any attention. But I could also sort by, like, I go down to the bottom. I want to see what's been mentioned the most in the last week. So the last 7 days, what's Drexel research that has been mentioned somewhere online? So then this publication, it's from February 2015. So maybe this is kind of one of those evergreen publication that publications that continues to get attention, even though it's an older publication. But it's been mentioned 31 times in the past week. So if I click into any of these publications or these research outputs, that's going to open up my Altmetric details page where I can see all of the online attention for this individual publication. So I can explore all those news stories and blog posts and X posts and patents. And this one has tons and tons of attention. So I can explore all of those different tabs to see exactly, you know, the news headlines and things of who's talking about this. And in terms of like news, for example, it's going to show the most recent mentions up at the top. So like we have this October 19th news story. So a few from October 2023. So you can explore those recent ones up at the top. So you can sort by mentions in the last week, in the last month, etc. You also can export the results to a CSV file if that's more your jam, looking at it in more of like a spreadsheet format. So definitely play around with these different sortings and see what's kind of most useful to you. In the advanced search, there's also some other ways where you can limit to publication date. Like I only want to see publications from, you know, this month or the last quarter or publications from 2023 only. So you can put in some publication date limits there in the advanced search as well. I also want to hop on over to, like I said, it's really quick, so we don't have time to go into every single tab, but I want to hop over to the mentions tab because this is just a massive reverse chronological feed of all the mentions and when they are occurring. So let's see, maybe I want to limit this to like news stories. I just want to see news attention. I can limit that in the filter. And then we're going to see anything with a blue check mark. That's going to be a Drexel University publication. So in this view, we're going to show you all of the research that these news stories and policy documents mention, but the little blue check mark tells you that that's a Drexel University publication. And so actually, I saw this in the news just yesterday. The EPA put out this, proposed this ban of cancer-causing contaminant TCE. So there's lots, and they're citing this 1994 Drexel University publication as kind of evidence in all these different news stories. So that's very interesting. So you can kind of stay on top of all those news mentions. You can also create your own curated list of perhaps news sources that are most meaningful to you. So I'll just pick all the ones that are easiest to type. All these 3-letter ones. So you can put in a whole list of different news sources. Like I said, maybe they're more kind of high value for you. You can apply that, see if your research has been mentioned in those sources. You can also save that. So on every page, you'll have a save search option. So I saved that. And so now I can visit my save searches over on the left-hand side. And let's edit this. News attention. I'll call it whatever I want. Click save. And so now if I want to rerun that search of all those kind of news outlets I'm most interested in, you just come in here and click it, and it's going to rerun that. And you can see all the new stuff that floats up to the top. But on the topic of saving searches, let's start fresh. I'm going to clear out all of my search filters here. So if you ever want to do that, you can just click the compass icon on the left-hand side. That'll give you a clean slate. I'm going to go back up. Oh, before I do that, actually, I did want to show you that we have this My Institution view. Again, the library has curated this. So if I click on this, it's going to give you all of your authors and also a departmental structure as well. So you can come in here and kind of see how this structure works. So if I work specifically in communications with the School of Public Health, I can take a look at this more specifically in these different kinds of departments, or I can run my search here. I'm going to just view results specific to the School of Public Health. So you can take a look at that institution breakdown, or in the advanced search, you also could create that search within this view. So public health, I could start typing that in, choose the department I'm interested in, or you could even search for a specific author. So like this was the author on that publication from the slides that I ran earlier. So let's run this search. You can search for an individual person, and let's see, sort by the last month. And then here's actually that example from the slides where that Washington Post news story comes into play. But another view on the Research Outputs tab that I forgot to mention earlier is that you can also view these results as a list. So these 2 little buttons on the upper left. So now I can see the authors at Drexel, the departments that this publication is associated with, and then I can see other university affiliations as well. And so all these things are linked. So if I just wanted to click on, Brian Lee and see his publications, I can adjust my search and search for his stuff. But back to the beginning. So one thing that I would definitely try is maybe like, let's go back to the School of Public Health example. I could run a search here. So maybe I want to save this search. Maybe I just work with the School of Public Health. Now, again, if I go back to my saved searches, I'm going to edit this to call this public health. Click save. And so now you can rerun that search. You could actually set that as your default home screen if you wanted to. But then over on the right-hand side, we have some automated alerting options. So definitely take a look at these. I find the weekly and monthly emails to be very useful. Maybe working in communications, you need a summary every single day. So you could click all of these. And so every day, week, or month, you'll receive a nice summary of where that research has been mentioned online. You can send yourself an example one if you want to take a look. I think I sent myself one so you can see what this looks like. Oh, it'll sign me out of my email. Never mind. That's all right. But so play around with that. Send yourself an example. It'll give you a really nice breakdown of like School of Medicine or School of Public Health research has been mentioned, 300 times on Twitter or on X in the last month. It's received mentions in 23 news stories, and everything's linked. So you can click to explore, what those news stories are, or what are those people on social media talking about our research. So it's a really nice kind of summary breakdown using these automated alerts. And we also have a shareable report as well. So within this, let me open it up. Big white screen. It's thinking. Maybe I have to go to a different tab. Sorry, now my failing here with my examples. I feel like I did something weird. Let's try this again. Sorry about that. There we go, because I'm on the wrong tab. So now I have this report overview for the School of Public Health, showing the total number of mentions from all time, total number of research outputs or publications that have been mentioned. And then you can see the summary of where that attention is coming from. And again, you can make this more specific to, only a certain time frame. Like I only want to see publications from 2023 or other limits as well. So we have this attention over time. And then we have the top 5 research outputs. Again, there's really no filter on here. It's just showing you the top 5 from all time. But you can edit this a little bit. So if folks want to chat further about how to kind of get creative with these reports, I've helped people create, like, let's just X out of every single thing here. And I'm going to view like a top 20 list. So I can help you create like custom filters and stuff. So then you'll have like a top 10 or top 20 list of all of your publications. If you just want like a top 10 list for research mentioned in the last week, like we can try and set that up for you. So lots of different ways you can kind of play around with these shareable reports to make them most useful to you. But you can make them public in the sense that you can make them shareable. So I'm going to save my changes. And now I have this button where I can share this link with anyone. They don't have to have an Altmetric Explorer account, and then they can view it and view up to the minute or up to date data. So it's not just a stagnant report. It's dynamic. It keeps updating as new mentions keep occurring. But with that, like I said, it was just kind of a quick teaser of Altmetric Explorer. So I'll stop there and see what kind of questions we have. All right, I think someone raised their hands. Feel free to unmute yourself now if you want to ask.
That was me. So are our own Drexel University's social media accounts included in this? And if they are, is there a way to exclude those numbers?
First of all, I don't know if they are. You can send me the handles and I can take a look and see if we are, well, we would be tracking Twitter or X, sorry, as long as your account is public, which is, I'm assuming it is. But at this point in time, there is no way to not out any sort of handles or anything like that. But do you have like a news
I'm sure several departments have their own Twitter accounts, so I just wasn't sure if that would be included in the stats.
Yeah, so it would be. So you could, it would, like, I don't know, what is your Twitter handle? I can search for it. Put you on the spot. No. Or you can paste it in if you'd like. But it should be in here because we track all of Twitter, public-facing Twitter. But if it was something like a Drexel University news site, we would have to see if we could manually add that, or like a blog. Those are things we have to manually add. But if it's like a Twitter handle, that's going to just be automatically like ingested into it, and there's no way to not it out. But you'd be able to see that it was your own tweet. But sometimes that's actually could be useful. So I know that sometimes comms departments will use Altmetric. Like we have this timeline view that I didn't even mention. They'll use it, and it's like crazy from all times. Let's go to like the last year, and they'll be like, okay, let's zoom in on a certain publication and let's see, like, did our tweeting or our blogging or our sharing like lead to an increased spike over time? This is the full Altmetric database, so the timeline just looks crazy. But if you zoom into like a specific publication, it can be interesting to see like where those spikes are in the timeline. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Sarah, I think you have your hand raised.
Yes, thanks. I joined a little bit late, so I'm sorry if you already covered this. I work in the at UMac, so I work on Drexel Magazine and Excel Magazine. Would there be a way for me to see how widely, let's say, an Excel article got pushed out on various social media platforms by folks at Drexel or anywhere else? So can you look at a Drexel produced publication and just look at the articles within that and how far they went?
So is it a traditional journal, or is it like just a
Excel Magazine? It's a magazine that the university publishes every 2 years to focus on research going on at Drexel.
Okay. Does the magazine have some sort of like unique identifier, like or the articles within it, or is it more of like a news source probably?
It has its own website.
Okay. I'll have to take a look at that to see if we track it. I'm guessing it's spelled just like Excel.
EXEL.
Yeah.
If the articles had DOIs, would that make it easier?
Yes. So that's kind of the kicker going. You said you joined a little late because it all goes back to whether or not the articles have some sort of unique identifier, like a DOI. And so if the publications or articles published in Excel Magazine, if they don't have any sort of unique identifier associated with them, then we probably then we won't be able to track attention to those individual kind of articles or publications.
I assume that they do. I mean, it's in Word. It's in WordPress when it gets published online.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that WordPress automatically gives each article its own identifier.
Okay, I'll have to take a look at this and kind of do some digging to see if we track it and to see if it's possible, and kind of get back to you on that. Let me just write down I'll do a follow-up. So Sarah Greenblatt, okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking to see if I can see any identifiers, and it's not a question of giving it a local identifier, it's giving it an industry-wide recognized identifier like DOI, which can be done.
Yeah. Correct. So yeah, if it doesn't have some sort of like you said, industry-wide, then we might, but we can talk about it. I mean, we've worked with people before on trying to make their things trackable for not just us, but persistent throughout the academic world, I guess. Deborah.
Hi, so you may have included this information in your intro at the beginning, so I apologize if I missed it. But what's the data source for identifying which publications are Drexel publications? Is it drawing on Esploro or something else?
So that actually would probably be better answered with the workflow of the librarians who have like built the custom data integration. So I don't know if any of you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yes, it's Esploro. If you want to know what's behind Esploro, that's another topic.
Okay, no, but you answered my question. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. I'm wondering if for the because I just pulled up Altmetrics and online and searched myself, and I use my middle name also in the search term. So I'm wondering if because the librarians or whoever curated the list here in the faculty, if it takes into account, because it's Megan R. Detloff, and I go by Megan Ryan Detloff, which is fine, or sometimes people will mention me as Megan Detloff, right? So are all those like iterations of my name considered, or is it only the one that's listed here when you're doing these kinds of searches? Can I consider that a exploral question?
Yes, I think that would be more, yeah. Esploro, yeah.
So we actually have Megan Ryan, but it is not listed as your publishing name. So listing a publishing name is something that the author would have to tell us what to do.
Okay.
And if you're telling me, I can make that change really quickly. But it also checks Megan Detloff and Megan R. Detloff and stuff like that. Okay. And just as an FYI, we have a system called Smart Harvesting, and you are being updated. If we haven't worked with you directly, I can't guarantee the accuracy, but you are being updated automatically. Okay.
Thank you. All right. If there aren't any other questions right now, I'm definitely going to follow up with you all with the slides. And also, I'll just reiterate, please, if you want to learn more about how to use this for your specific needs, let me know. We can have a one-on-one chat. We can chat with more of your colleagues, talk about it, and go deeper into, the things that you could do and how to adjust the saved searches and all that to fit your needs. So as you play around, let me know. But thank you all for joining today. I don't know if the library has any final words.
Yes, before we sign off, thanks so much, Patty. This has really been exactly what we wanted. We're going to get a teaser. Keep in mind, we're trying to assess how helpful this would be to expand our system of tracking and working on, and we believe there is a value. So, but if Stacy, if you're there, if I can call on you to just alert people what the other two sessions, I don't know, Patty or one of your colleagues is coming to further give you a little bit more of the technical behind the scenes issues. So some of the questions you were raising are really good ones. But they're about some of the structural things of how we are curating the information. What's the scope of which we're dealing with it? But Stacy, are you still on board there? And can just remind people? Yep, she put it in the chat.
I'm here. Yeah, I put it in chat. There's one on October 31st, again from 12 to 12:30, and then the last one will be November 7th. Sorry. From 12 to 12:30. The last one in November is based around faculty and individual researchers. And then that session on October 31st is geared more towards the research office and that group, ADRs.
And as you look on this further, this was also a back way to get some interest to see for us to be able to tell you a little bit more different communities in our university about how this fits into the broader system. But we thought this was easier for people to understand what are some of the things that it can give you. And I hope that that's created or sparked your interest. So definitely give us feedback about that, give the library's feedback, because so I say we have a license to look at this, but we need to make a decision. Are we going to continue to hold on to this? And it'll partly depend, is there really a interest and a use for it? So thanks again so much, Patty. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you all. Have a great day.